So what happens in this is that the anode gets positively charged, and the anode is basically copper and these impurities. So when it gets positively charged, the copper dissolves into the solution, and with it the impurities also get dissolved. I mean, not dissolved, they go into the solution. So because this is positively charged, copper will lose its electron to get positively charged, which is CO2 plus. Alright. And what happens is that CO2 plus goes into the solution, which is already CO2 plus. I mean, copper sulfate in ionic form will be CO2 plus and SO4 2 minus. So what happens is that the impurities XYZ, which are soluble in the solution, will get dissolved in the solution, and the impurities which are not soluble in the solution will settle down. And this impurity which is not soluble is known as the anode mud. So the impurities which are soluble will go into the solution, then they are harmless, and the impurities which are not soluble will just settle down, and this impurities which are not soluble are called the anode mud. They often ask you a question, what is anode mud? So anode mud are the impurities which are not soluble in the solution. So this copper will get dissolved in the solution and it will become copper 2 plus. Now this copper 2 plus is what kind of an ion? Positively charged. So positively charged ions are what? Cations, if you remember. And cations will move towards the cathode. So what happens is that this Cu2 plus ions which are obtained from here, let me draw it a bit more clear. These Cu2 plus ions which are obtained from here start moving towards this, and they get deposited over here, and the deposition reaction is obviously Cu2 plus 2 electrons which are obtained from the cathode, it will give you Cu, and this Cu is pure because the impurities are either dissolved in the solution or they are settled down as anode mud. So what remains is just the pure metal which gets deposited on this cathode, and the cathode is already a thin strip of the pure metal, so the pure metal gets more and more deposited and the anode just corrodes away. Not corrodes away, it is taken into the solution. Basically this gets deposited on this. So we obtain pure copper from the impure copper. So this is the method of electrolytic refining, and they'll ask you where these reactions take place. Write the reactions. So just write that over here electrons are getting released, so there should be a positive charge, so this is the anode, and here electrons are getting taken, so cathode has to supply them, so this reaction will take place at the cathode. Okay. So this is all about electrolytic refining. So it is a very intelligent method of refining the impure metal. We now come to our next topic, and that is corrosion. We all have heard this word corrosion everywhere. But what is the actual meaning of corrosion? Corrosion is basically the eating, if a metal is eaten away by some external force like water, moisture, air, or any chemicals, so that process is known as corrosion. It can be called as the degradation of a metal by the attack of external physical forces like air, moisture, chemicals, etc. Now, we all have seen corrosion in some form or the other, and the most common form of corrosion is the rusting of iron. You must have seen that an iron, maybe any iron object, after being kept for a long time in outside in the air, exposed to air and moisture, they will get a brown, flaky coating, which is called rust. And there are other forms of corrosion also, like if you have seen silver, if it is kept, after a long time, when it is exposed to atmosphere, it develops a black coating. And this is because of sulfur present in the air, and the black coating is of silver sulfide. And this is basically because of the sulfur dioxide and all present in the air. And copper, after being exposed to air, will get a green coating This is basically due to carbon dioxide, and the substance which is the green coating is copper carbonate. So when these chemicals are, when these kind of articles of silver and copper are corroded, the pure metal is eaten away and these kind of salts are formed. So this is a lot of damage to these metals. So that is why we need to prevent corrosion.